Live. I just think we came up with a new podcast title.
Yeah.
I don't think, what was it? I can't remember.
Nobody wants to know what I think.
Nobody wants to know what
Or
I
it could be nobody wants to know what you think, which is more aggressive and almost an insult, but maybe captures the spirit of the show the best.
Right. Somebody capture that Twitter handle right now.
Nobody, well, it's too long.
Nobody wants to know what you think.
Acronym it.
Nobody wants to know
what to know. What did you? I don't know.
I don't know. I know. All I know is every day. That's all I know. Okay. All right. Let's do this thing. It is the Waiver Wire Show. Blah 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 blah. Flippa. All right. Here we go. 3 and 2 and 1. You are headed for the fantasy playoffs, or you are headed towards spoiling someone going to the fantasy playoffs. Either way, you need to know the players to pick up. You need to know the injury situations, and we are here for you. And as always, Dr. Jene Bramel kicks us off with injured quarterbacks in Week 13.
Hi, guys. Kyler Murray is coming back from the Arizona Cardinals bye week, and he is tentatively expected to play. Cliff Kingsbury said on Monday that he was hopeful that Murray would play, but the team still wanted to see how he would do during practice this week before they committed to him being able to go. Murray, this is likely the week he was targeting over the past month or so. The team gave him an extra week through the bye week to recover, and I'd consider him probable to go. Aaron Rodgers has decided not to have surgery on his toe. He's still seeking some additional opinions, maybe looking at ways to put an orthotic into his shoe or some other things to make him a little bit more comfortable. Although he's been in pain and limping at times, he's been productive over the last couple of weeks since that injury happened in Week 10. The Packers have a bye week this week, giving Rodgers a little bit extra time to recover, but there's not any indication at all that he's not going to be able to play. I'll watch and see how the Eagles treat Jalen Hurts this week, who's dealing with an ankle injury. Nick Sirianni on Monday said that Hurts was sore and he wasn't sure whether or not he'd be available to play. Adam Schefter's tweet was a little bit more concerning, suggested that the Eagles might take some time through the Week 14 bye and allow Hurts to rest. And with those 4 interceptions last week, could give him a little bit more reason to give him a week or two off to see how he does. So Hurts looks a little bit more questionable than probable, but we'll see what his practice participation looks like. Justin Fields diagnosed with cracked ribs after his Week 11 injury. Very difficult for him to turn it over on a short week and be able to play on Thanksgiving Day. The Bears seem a little bit more optimistic about his playing time this week, but we'll have to see whether or not he's comfortable enough to throw in practice before considering him to play. Maybe still to the doubtful side of questionable, but that could change in a hurry if he progresses better than expected. Teddy Bridgewater left the game briefly with a bruise on his shin, was able to come back, still kind of gimpy and limping around. Those injuries can swell up pretty significantly overnight. The Broncos didn't have too much to say about Bridgewater on Monday, but I think there's a good chance he's going to be able to play, barring something unexpected in the next 48 hours. Zach Wilson still dealing with some leftover looseness in his knee joint after that PCL sprain earlier in the year. The Jets should get both Joe Flacco and Mike White back this week as possibilities to relieve Wilson. Wilson limping around a lot toward the end of last week's game, and if he really is dealing with that much looseness, the Jets would do well to give him a little bit more time to recover.
Leftover looseness.
Yeah.
that's not a good sign.
Olestra.
Yeah, that's not what you want. Taysom Hill, our cover athlete, thumbnail abound for this show, and 25 to 50%. He just needs his own section because, Bloom, you put this out on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I actually saw it. But it was like, what have they been waiting for anyway?
Yeah.
With Taysom Hill. So it's going to be Taysom Hill because you'll be shocked to know Trevor Siemian experiment did not work.
Well, perhaps it was that his foot injury was worse than let on, and he was practicing in full but not really ready to play, and they wanted to get him back at 100%, which actually is refreshing if that's the story, and it could be refreshing for your fantasy team. Look, he's a runner. There's just the change of pace at this point, Cease, right? I mean, there's this season, we can all feel it, that the season has that effect of wearing down everybody. And here comes Taysom Hill, kind of shot out of a gun and giving the Dallas defense a look that they haven't seen. And it could be somewhat revitalizing. Kamara's going to be back. Ingram's going to be back. The Saints season needs a defibrillator. Your fantasy team might need it at quarterback. Look, there's not a lot of reliable week-to-week quarterbacks this year. And Aaron Rodgers on bye, too, so you might need to cover that. Taysom Hill, if you haven't been holding him, it's time to grab him.
It's time to grab him, and if you can't, because he's gone, you heard Dr. Jene talk about the cracked ribs of Justin Fields at 15 to 30%. Derek Carr is a 10 to 20%er. Carson Wentz, yes, Carson Wentz. Now with more T.Y. Hilton, 10 to 20%er as well. That's our next little group of quarterbacks.
Yeah, Justin Fields, we have hope. Andy Dalton did pretty well against Detroit in the passing game. Allen Robinson hopefully will be back. You also have the running ability of Fields. And again, you just don't know who's going to get hot in December. It's in his range of outcomes to do that. Derek Carr getting hot again? Seems like this is, it's terrible. Freudian things, right? I'm writing about the Raiders offense, and all I can think is revived, resurrected, all these things, because whatever it is, that funk that was around the team after that Henry Ruggs terrible, tragic moment, it seems to have lifted. And they get Washington this week. Now, Washington's team is one that we're watching transform before our very eyes. But Derek Carr has momentum, and Carson Wentz has momentum. The Colts didn't lose because of Carson Wentz. All right. Even though they had 5 turnovers, it wasn't that kind of Carson Wentz game. It was a daring and a successful Carson Wentz game. And he gets Houston this week. He's going to have a bye coming up. So he might not be a set it and forget it option from here. And also, they can also go back into their let's just ride Jonathan Taylor and throw the ball 20 times mode against Houston. So you have that wide range of outcomes for Carson Wentz, but he's playing well. And I think we're looking at an outcome where, yes, Philadelphia gets a first-round pick, but the Colts are happy. Everyone's happy.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's happy, and we're happy that K1 is here, of course. And he says, Minshew time. Mm-hmm. Minshew time. 1% are very deep 2 QB Superflex leagues and very interesting to consider.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts has an ankle. We'll watch it. I just want to use this moment, Cease, to say that as we're not getting Ryan Fitzpatrick, maybe again, period. We barely got, a half this year. We are getting maybe Gardner Minshew back. We need that. The football universe needs that energy from Gardner Minshew. Needs to be starting somewhere. Maybe Pittsburgh. Maybe he's the next Pittsburgh starting. Let's start that right now, Cease. Gardner Minshew, 2022.
Put it in the universe.
Yeah.
And manifest it. Put it in the next clip of Dr. Jene Bramel, who joins us once again to talk about injured running backs. And this is a long one. When I was editing it, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
There's so
carnage.
Many. It is the blood and carnage at the running back position. So buckle up. This one's going to take a while.
Lots of moving parts at the running back position this week. Dalvin Cook dealing with a shoulder dislocation. It's an injury he's had multiple times in the past. He's had surgery on both shoulders. An MRI on Monday suggested that he's got a labral injury. Not too surprising. There's always damage in and around the shoulder joint when a dislocation occurs. It's going to be at least a couple of weeks for Cook. It's made more difficult by the fact Minnesota in week 14 has a Thursday game, and getting him turned around in 10 days is not a likely situation. I don't know that we'll see Cook go on injured reserve, but this is going to be at least a 2-week absence, and depending on how he recovers, what sort of strength and stability and range of motion he gets back in these next 7 to 10 days will determine whether or not he's going to be able to return for the first week of the fantasy playoffs in week 15. So doubtful at best over the next couple of weeks. Hopefully you'll have him as recovered as possible and reconditioned in time for the fantasy playoffs. The news was not as good for Christian McCaffrey, who suffered an ankle injury and left the game, didn't return, and then left the locker room in a walking boot. Didn't seem to be a lot of concern from Matt Rule, kind of called it a rolled ankle, but at the end of the play where he was injured, kind of pulled back against his body, didn't really see what the ankle looked like on the way down, so there may be more than one thing going on here. And the news from Tom Pelissero suggested that he just wasn't going to be able to recover before the end of the season. So McCaffrey's back on injured reserve, and you can't be designated to return twice in the same year. So McCaffrey's earliest return is going to be in 2022. He's out for the year. Good news for Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram out in New Orleans. Sean Payton said he was not going to discuss injuries at all, so we're going to be reliant on practice participation to tell us where those players are going to be. Alvin Kamara was able to do a little bit on Sunday and then was listed as limited in practice on Monday. If that happens again on Tuesday, it's pretty clear that they're preparing him to play, in contrast to times where a player will go through a limited practice, and then not able to practice for the rest of the week. So if you see Kamara practice on Tuesday, it's a sign that he's trending pretty strongly towards playing. Ingram, after dealing with some knee swelling that kept him out of last week's game, fully practiced on Monday and is clearly trending towards a return. We'll see what practice participation says there, but hopefully these players will both be, maybe even take off the injured report altogether. But I think you can expect to see Kamara listed as questionable. I think he's going to be able to go on Thursday night against Dallas. News is also good for Ezekiel Elliott. There was some suspicions through the weekend that Dallas might give him a week or two to recover from the bruise that he's been dealing with in his right knee since very early this season. But Elliott was also back to a full practice on Monday, another clear indication that more than just evaluation, that full practice means they're likely preparing him to play. So we'll consider him probable. I do think we'll see a little bit more of Tony and Pollard in the next couple of weeks, but Elliott should be active based on how practice went on Monday. DeAndre Swift aggravated a right shoulder sprain that he suffered in Week 10. Very painful, was not able to return to last Thursday night's game, and Dan Campbell on Monday said it was going to be a stretch for him to be able to play this week. So doubtful for Swift. These shoulder sprains are difficult injuries for running backs to play through. Tentatively would expect him back in Week 14, but that could be a situation that drifts into the fantasy playoffs as well. Darrell Henderson had his quad wrapped on the sideline this week, and then Sean McVay said he was struggling a little bit. Looks like it's more of a day-to-day situation than a week-to-week, but if this is more strain than bruise, Henderson could be at risk of missing some time, at least a week. Miles Sanders aggravated an ankle sprain, was able to come back, and then left again, probably in the day-to-day category, but we'll see how the Philadelphia Eagles handle his injury with a bye week to come soon. J.D. McKissick was carted off the field with a neck injury, was able to sit up on the cart while leaving on Monday night, but those injuries often require a little bit of time so that a player can protect his head and neck, and the strength is there going forward. So outside chance McKissick will be able to come back this week, but he's looking doubtful to play as well. Rashad Penny, Jermichael Hasty, Jordan Howard, all dealing with injuries until we see them back on the practice field. Wouldn't expect them to be able to go. Jeremy McNichols hopefully coming back from his concussion after the Titans bye in Week 13, and we'll see how Damian Williams looks this week. He's not been able to practice in a couple of weeks either.
Oh, whew, we made it.
Yeah, right.
We made it. Can you make it with this list of running backs? Now, Bloom, we're going to start with the most obvious one.
Yeah.
And that is Alexander Mattison.
Right.
50-plus percenter.
Right.
And there may be some of you that were like, hey, he's never been out there.
Yeah.
Which he may not have been. I know in all of my leagues, as a matter of fact, he was never available. He was drafted and stashed. But public leagues, local leagues, somebody's not paying attention. All sorts of strange things can happen. If he's out there, obviously Alexander Mattison is the guy we talk about.
Yeah, Cecil, it gives us an opportunity to talk about our outlook for him. He looked great earlier this year. Minnesota's offense, some talk, it could become more Cousins-centric. They actually had let Cousins cook, Cecil. We talked about that months ago here. Mm-hmm. Let him drive the tractor. He's going to drive the tractor, The Madison looks great. Again, fresh. You can't underestimate the value of fresh legs at this time of the season. So maybe try to trade for him if you need him. He can be that league winner. See, all those thoughts that we start back in August when these ADPs of backup running backs are set so high, we think especially at the right time, it can make the difference, especially in a season like this where there's a slim margin between teams. And just like in the NFL, our fantasy teams are getting hot and cold, hitting landmines. And Madison right now is a very valuable player.
It's a very valuable time for your fantasy team to go out and pick up. Yes, Dante Foreman, 25 to 50%. Chuba Hubbard, again, kind of like the Madison thing, 25 to 50%. J.D. McKissick, almost there as well, 20 to 40% for him.
Yeah, and you're just not going to totally empty your wallet for Foreman if he's out there, partially because it's going to be some sort of committee, partially because Tennessee is on bye. So when a team is on bye, and we're going to talk about some waiver wire pickups, the teams are on bye, and it's hard to weigh them against players that aren't on bye. It may depend on your team's needs. But Foreman, he got the commitment. He had the fumble on the 30-yard run, but looked good. And Tennessee, they're not going to go down without a fight. Maybe Carolina's go down without a fight, C's. I don't know. I mean, there's a possibility of collapse of this offense. There really is, after what we saw from Cam Newton, and just wonder what's going on. They lost Dante Jackson on the defensive side. Chuba Hubbard's going to share with Amir Abdullah, who we'll talk about at the very end. So they've given him some work, and we've seen if they fall behind, he doesn't get as much work, and he's not very good for fantasy. But if they can be a competitive team, and they're on their bye, again, how to calculate that in. But Hubbard is going to get first crack at the first early down work, goal line work. We'll see what he can do. And 20 to 40, McKissick in the next group could really be above this group, depending on what you need, depending on your scoring in PPR leagues. And Cecil gives us an opportunity, because we don't do a Monday night recap, just to mention that Washington is as a different team. I mean, they just look like a different team, Cecil, than what we saw a month ago. And the running backs are the head of that club, the hammer that this offense is using. And it seems like you can step back. There's a pattern, Cease. We're seeing these dominant run performances and teams that are defining their identity with the run starting to have a lot more success with these running backs. And McKissick looks like he can be just as much a part of that as Antonio Gibson, who's getting the Christian McCaffrey workload when McCaffrey's out for the year.
I think our minds love patterns. And Bloom, I was going to say, I don't want to get too crunchy, but it's not crunchy. It's science. There's a pattern in everything. It's called the Fibonacci spiral.
Yes.
Let's talk about the spiral of your team that's caused you to go to the waiver wire for Boston Scott, 15 to 30%. Jamal Williams, friend of the show. I almost wanted him as the cover athlete, but I was like, Taysom Hill will be this week. But love Jamal Williams. And the game script doesn't matter. That's the great thing about Jamal Williams is like, up big, not that it ever happened with Detroit, trailing immediately. Like, okay, yeah, he's still out there as a receiver. He's 15 to 30%. Let's throw in Matt Breida, Ronald Jones, Samaje Perine, Devin Singletary. It was a healthy list of banged up running backs, thus a healthy list of reserve running backs you could pick up.
Yeah, and we're going to keep refreshing that. Again, these are automated advice through the app, and it always gives us a chance to talk, we like to hang out, we like to talk, we like to chew this stuff up. And just like Dr. Gene's injury report, and first of all, Dr. Gene's a saint. Now, the more I think about it, Cease, being given the job of tracking the injuries in the NFL, the whole NFL, week to week, especially this year, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And he does it with such grace and always polite and even a little bit of cheer. And it's like a cliff diver. I was thinking of the cliff divers, or the pearl divers, where they can hold their breath for like 3 or 4 minutes, Cease, to get those valuable pearls. That's Dr. Gene getting those pearls and bringing them back up to the surface for us. And part of that carnage is, again, a lot of different variables. I'm not really sure how to... you have short-term value, you have long-term value, you have speculative value, you have high floor value, and different teams need different things. So you run your team and you know what you need the most. Boston Scott, with Miles Sanders banged up again, could start this week against the Jets. Who I didn't include in this injury report at this level, Cease, is Jordan Howard, who's going to come later. But if Jordan Howard's practicing this week, it flips, right? I'd rather have Howard than Scott.
Right.
And if Miles Sanders is practicing, then it kind of blows the whole thing up. But Howard is the most interesting. I'm going to talk about this Eagle situation altogether. Howard's the most interesting, and I think if you're just swinging for the fences, the guy that you might want to pick up out of the Eagles' backfield, because remember, Miles Sanders fumbled. Boston Scott had a costly fumble last week. I could easily see the Eagles saying, Jordan Howard's the guy that we can trust. So for now, it's Boston Scott, but this is fluid. And Boston Scott still played pretty well, and it is the Jets coming up. Jamal Williams, you mentioned it, they fall behind. He gets a lot of receptions. He's still running pretty well. Detroit not going away without a fight. You hear this fire Dan Campbell stuff, Cease? Come on. Come on, folks. You have someone that is building something. Matt Breida, he's building something, some momentum, reviving his career here. And he's got the momentum, even though Singletary's getting more touches. So again, we have the Singletary volume, maybe more volume in the passing game. Breida showing some burst, that Breida burst on that touchdown, although the Saints defense also was waving the white flag at that point. But Breida, I think, has more of an upside on a play-to-play basis. Singletary is going to get more. And of course, they could always just throw one Zach Moss back in there. Now we get to the backup, Samaje Perine. And he's one of the few that can be a 3-down back. And we see the Bengals committing to the run. Hey, Cease, there's that pattern, committing to the run. And Perine's got motorboating, that ability to still have a power wear down the defense effect like one Joe Mixon. And then Ronald Jones. Don't forget old Ronald Jones. What if Ronald Jones is a league winner in 2021? Right? Mm-hmm. Why not? Why not? Because now Tampa, with teams giving them the run, they're taking the run. And Leonard Fournette had 4 touchdowns last week. Jones had 1. But the point is, as defenses, and you got to love the chess here, Cease, as defenses are saying, we're going to take away the downfield pass, We're going to keep everything in front of us. Then the Bucks just flip the switch. Leonard Fournette flips the switch. And that can be Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones runs with edge. Ronald Jones runs mean. He can be part of that. He can be the point of that spear too. And Leonard Fournette, there was a time, Cease, that we thought injury prone. This is where Dr. Gene says, I don't know about injury prone, because we thought Leonard Fournette was injury prone. And then he wasn't. Then he's durable. So the Tampa Bay backfield, that's an offense I want to be invested in. So folks have moved on from Ronald Jones. Remember, he's maybe next week's Alexander Mattison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, stay one step ahead of things if you can. Rex Burkhead, I don't know if you're one step ahead of much. Same with Tevin Coleman, 7 to 15% for both. Chat room was talking about the Darrell Henderson thing, and Sony Michel sitting there at 7 to 15%. And let's throw in Khalil Herbert, Kenny Nwangu, and also Jeff Wilson as those 5 to 10% section.
It's just backup running backs. I mean, the Madison thing, Cease leading with Madison and Hubbard too, just accentuates where we're at in the fantasy football calendar and how one of these guys can be the difference between a champion and a runner-up. Rex Burkhead, maybe not that guy, but David Johnson's banged up. Texans defense is playing well. They seem like they're going to stay committed to the run no matter what. They ask why Royce Freeman didn't play. Did you see this? They asked why Royce Freeman didn't play. David Culley said, I liked what the running backs were doing, what Burkhead and Johnson were doing. They had 3 yards per carry on 22 carries. He liked what they were doing. So hence no Royce Freeman. Maybe we should be talking about Royce Freeman. Anyway, Rex Burkhead's going to get the work. Tevin Coleman got the work, looked pretty good. And you saw rushing touchdowns by Wilson and Walter. Now, if Coleman had gotten one of those, he'd be higher on this list. If he'd gotten both of them, he'd be really high on this list. I generally don't trust him, but hey, the Jets are winning. Jets are playing Philadelphia, who just lost to the Giants. It could be another good Tevin Coleman day. So, there's even 1 week this far down on the waiver wire list, Cease. Sony Michel. There's potential 1 week value here with Darrell Henderson in the quad. I'm not that excited about the Rams offense right now, but they are playing Jacksonville. I'm not that excited about Michel. And isn't it amazing, too, that the Patriots trade Michel before the season, and it's running back depth and carnage. Right. They don't need him. they
got too many already.
They got to pick out for their troubles. And we get to running backs that have shown something. Khalil Herbert, who still is behind David Montgomery. You get a running back who hasn't had a chance yet to show anything. Kenny Nwangu, who's behind Alexander Mattison, but he could be the next guy, and you see that speed. And I want to say also, by the way, Matt Waldman put this out there first, that Nwangu has come back from an Achilles tear. And we're also seeing Dante Foreman doing his thing after an Achilles tear. I forget who was put out there. I'm sorry, I can't give you credit. And said, wait, Cam Akers, buy Cam Akers. Maybe it is no big deal. So that's something that's nice to see, as Nwangu had a 99-yard touchdown on a kick return last week. Jeff Wilson hasn't looked that good, but he's in the best situation, that San Francisco running game. So if Elijah Mitchell, who knows the injury report from this year, if Elijah Mitchell goes down, then we're going to be talking about Jeff Wilson. We're still not done.
Yeah, we're still not done. Amir Abdullah, Dontrell Hilliard, there's Howard again, Devontae Booker, Bloom. I'm also going to throw in Phillip Lindsay.
Sure.
He didn't know what he was doing, and he got 12 carries. And somewhere in some past life, Myles Gaskin must have scorned me, right? I have no idea. I don't know Myles Gaskin. I've never talked to Myles Gaskin. I just don't like his game. And I'm totally wrong every time he has a big game. Yeah, that's fine. But Phillip Lindsay's there. You got half the workload, Eddie. So, I'll throw in a 1%er for Phillip Lindsay.
Cease, I had him in there. And then I took him out because I thought, is he even ahead of Saleh Ahmed yet? And Miami's running game is terrible. And he's going from a terrible running game to a terrible running game. But, hey, Phillip Lindsay, I said at the beginning of the year.
But he's getting touches.
Yeah, he's getting touches, and he just overcomes the odds. I mean, the dude just finds a way. So, sure, let's throw a unit out there at him. Amir Abdullah, Carolina's on bye, and he's the passing down back. But they're playing Buffalo in Week 15 and Tampa in Week 16. That sounds like passing down games. That sounds like Abdullah could catch 10 passes in those games. Dontrell Hilliard, I don't even know what to do, because Jeremy McNichols, Tennessee's on bye. Jeremy McNichols should be back from his concussion. But if he's not, Hilliard's getting almost half the work, and he's doing something with it. Even without the 68-yard touchdown run, one of the more bizarre plays you'll see, he still was productive. He did have a bad fumble. So he figures in to that running back picture probably And then I'm having remorse not putting Jordan Howard higher, right? If you spell out the secret message of this waiver wire show, it's like maybe you should just get Jordan Howard, just because. And I don't know, his knee injury might be bad enough that he doesn't even play again this year, or it's one of those things where he tries to come back and it hurts it. So you have the injury dragging down his value. But if he was healthy right now, I would think he's starting this week for Philadelphia against the Jets, and he built great momentum. Again, alignment, patterns, running game. December, Jordan Howard.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the calendar because I was like, this is the time.
Yeah.
And it switches over. It's like playoff basketball or playoff hockey, Bloom. There's your hockey reference.
Yeah.
It's like March Madness, like you get hot at the right time, but you do the thing when you switch to this time of year and calendars over to December, you run the ball, some magic can happen. Don't run the ball, or whatever. Oh, God. Anytime I hear that, I'm like, oh, you don't understand football. They don't have to run the ball. Sure. All right, let's get to the injured wide receivers. The wide receiver section, much, much shorter than the running back section. But here's Dr. Jene Bramel with injured wide receivers.
Deebo Samuel didn't seem to have too much trouble after the game, after went down with a groin strain late in the game before a tackle. He's been dealing with this injury off and on for a few weeks now. The initial news was pretty good, but on Monday, Adam Schefter and Kyle Shanahan both reporting that this is probably going to be a week or two absence for Samuel. So very likely to be out this week, could easily stretch a couple of weeks beyond that, depending on what his recovery looks like. Like Kyler Murray, the Arizona Cardinals are hoping to get DeAndre Hopkins back from a hamstring strain. They want to see what he looks like in practice, but this has been a week that they've been targeting coming out of the bye. It's going to be close to a 4 to 5 week return for him, and that's in the sweet spot of these mid-grade injuries. You'd like to see him recondition successfully and be able to go through a full practice by the end of the week, but looks like he's trending towards playing. Cowboys should get both CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper back Thursday night. Cooper will be outside his 10-day isolation period after testing positive for COVID. CeeDee Lamb was close to recovering in time in a very short week to play 4 days, 72 hours almost, after the concussion he suffered prior. Just wasn't cleared by the independent neurologist. Already fully practicing on Monday, and you'd expect him to be able to go. Antonio Brown could also be back dealing with an ankle injury that is going on 6 weeks now. Bruce Arians was a lot more positive about Brown's status last week than he had been at any point in the future. So if Brown's reconditioning and rehab goes well this week, could be back in a limited situation, and you'd hope to have him full strength as the fantasy playoffs approach. Sterling Shepard and Kadarius Toney both dealing with quad strains. Until we see them off the side rehab field, you'd expect them to be doubtful at best. Shepard might be a little bit closer than Toney, but we'll see how that goes. Allen Robinson dealing with a hamstring strain. Can add Marquise Good with a foot injury. Both of those players are probably going to be limited in practice at best. The Bears did not put Allen Robinson on injured reserve, and this will be his third week absent. So this was a week that I think that they were hopeful. But since he's not been able to go back to practice yet, you'd wonder if he would be able to play this week or not. Corey Davis dealing with a groin strain, aggravated injury, was added to the injury report and then downgraded last week. Not a good sign for his availability this week. But the Jets should get Denzel Mims off the COVID list. They've been concerned about his conditioning, so there's a little bit of ways to go before he may be able to come back. You have to watch his practice participation carefully.
It's to the wide receivers that we go, and I guess we could do all of them at the same time, Bloom. But let's work through this. It's a short list, to be sure. But 12 to 25%. Russell Gage, Jacoby Myers, 7 to 15%. Don't expect touchdowns, but 7 to 15% there. Kendrick Bourne, expect some touchdowns, 5 to 10%, and then Deshaun Jackson, also a 5 to 10%er as well. So some names we're familiar with, some names that. It's just fun watching Jacoby Myers play, and Deshaun Jackson will rip off a big play here and there, and that ties into the Derek Carr thing you talked about earlier with the quarterback. So wide receiver, not as much help, but you may not need as much help.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of churn here. Not like there was at running back. Maybe I should have included Rondale Moore. I don't know. We're still holding a candle for him if he was dropped on by. There's just not a lot going on out there. Russell Gage, we're going to stay at the top because he's getting a lot of targets, a lot of short intermediate targets. He's meshing with what Matt Ryan can do at this point in his career, right? Running crossing routes, all that underneath stuff. It's good for PPR leagues. Playing Tampa this week. Hey, he's a wide receiver 3 flex type this week. So he can help you. He can be what Jamison Crowder hasn't been. Jacoby Myers and Kendrick Bourne, I'm going to handle together. Jacoby Myers gives you that 4 for 40 alliteration games. He's 5 for 50.
Right.
That floor, and we had a touchdown, and we had a couple big plays last week as New England was just toying with Tennessee in the passing game. And part of that was Kendrick Bourne scoring twice. The second one was beautiful. The tightrope tackle breaking play. I can't think of another play that I've said those two things in the same sentence, Cease. Not just even in the same sentence. It wasn't like they happened on the same play. He was actually tightroping the sideline as he broke the tackle. It was sweet. That being said, patterns. Isn't New England just going to run the ball? You know, I mean, I know they did it against Tennessee, so I'm not necessarily excited to put in a New England receiver. Plus, Nelson Aguilar's still there. Hunter Henry gets his targets in the red zone. He just hasn't been. They haven't been good targets the last couple of games.
Right.
So the Patriots passing game still doesn't get me excited. That's why, Mac Jones. I'm not going to talk about Mac Jones as a quarterback pickup. They are playing Buffalo this week. They have a bye coming up also. So I'm just not sure how much these Patriots receivers can help you, but they are gaining momentum. And Deshaun Jackson's gaining momentum, rounding out this group of 4. Why did I bring up Juwan Jennings? Maybe I should just talk about Juwan. That'd be more fun than talking about Deshaun Jackson again. It's the same thing, and he did it last week. I mean, he has the potential to do this in any given week. He could even do it twice in a game and make your week, or he can get hurt like on his second snap. But against Washington, now again, look at the numbers. See, I see these year-to-date stats. I say this every year. Here's a Bloom rant. Year-to-date stats are misleading, at least, and sometimes used in a dishonest way. Ooh, I went there. Because really, all I want to know is what teams have done the last 4 or 5 weeks, right? Washington giving it up through the air against the deep ball. Not now. Not really. I mean, this looks like a competent defense. So it's hard to say, but Deshaun Jackson, and yeah, if Darren Waller's out, it's probably even better. We'll talk about that here in a second as we give Dr. Gene one more segment, and then see, he's sitting here listening to Dr. Gene. It's calming. It's like petting a cat. It's like since Judy hasn't come and joined us on the show, at least we get to listen to Dr. Gene.
Right. At least that's what we get. And I get my Boogie Nights look, as Adam says.
Yeah.
And part of my brain, when you said that, I was like, stats and information being used dishonestly. That's a different show. And then my other part of my brain was like, Alfred Molina in Boogie Nights in that scene. Mm-hmm. You can skip the entire movie, and there's like lots of great scenes, right?
Right.
Lots of great scenes, great acting performances by so many people. But if you just go to that Alfred Molina scene, right, and the Sister Christian, my God, that is
first
like
concert night.
That is like
the first
gold,
concert I saw.
man,
that scene.
Gold.
So that scene, it's I feel like it's almost like a tribute to Tarantino, where it's like it's a scene that is in of itself a film that is really, it's like a short story tacked on to the end of the long story, and it really, embodies how. Boogie Nights is a really interesting film to discuss because it actually, even though it's about a very late 20th century moral decay topic, has a pretty moral message to it. Everything spirals out of control. The point is, like, there are certain lines that you can't keep crossing without there being some sort of repercussions.
Right.
Eventually. And then, of course, because it's Paul Thomas Anderson, there's daddy issues. And I say that I have daddy issues. So, I'm not trying to belittle it.
I don't know if I can say much more about that scene, but some very interesting time.
Paul Thomas Anderson has a new film out. Cease. This is our little film podcast within a podcast. Paul Thomas Anderson has a new film out. You know who the male lead is? Phillip Seymour Hoffman's son. And he plays an actor.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's eerie. Awesome. It gives me chills. It's kind of eerie.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good.
Long live PSH, right?
Yes, exactly. Out there making shots.
All right. Back to our regularly scheduled programming.
And here we go, everybody. It used to be in the old days, Bloom, I would cut some of that out of the audio version. I'm like, nope. No. Y'all listening to get that too. So here you go. They
probably want it.
They want it. They don't want it at the beginning of the show. I'll tell you that much. Okay. Anyway.
I'm glad I was drinking my coffee. You're going to make me choke.
Spectacular, Bloom. Spectacular.
Yes, another spectacular waiver wire show.
Dr. Jene Bramel is always fantastic. And here he is with the injured tight end news you need to know in week 13.
called an IT band strain. That is a kind of a thick piece of connective tissue on the outside of the leg from the hip to the knee. It's an injury that you often will hear as kind of an overuse situation in people that have been running quite a bit. Some soreness, especially when you extend your leg at the knee. It being not a particularly structural area of the knee, probably more of a day-to-day situation than week-to-week. But Las Vegas said that Waller was a little bit more week-to-week on Monday, and that could put him in jeopardy of missing this week. We could see Foster Moreau back covering for Waller for another week. We'll see how practice participation goes with him. Not ready to rule him out yet, but could be on the more questionable side of probable for now. TJ Hawkinson was not able to finish Thursday's game, dealing with some knee issues and a chronic shoulder injury. Day to day, he has been able to practice and play through this injury recently, but looked a little bit more banged up after the Thursday game, whether that was a short week turnaround and hard for him in the extra couple of days, the 10-day turnover to this week's game. Expect to at least see Hawkinson limited in practice. The Steelers were evaluating Pat Freiermuth for a concussion at the end of the game. There wasn't an update on his condition on Monday. If he's listed with a concussion on Wednesday's practice report, he may be doubtful to go this week. Hopefully that evaluation went well and he'll be able to play with Eric Ebron on injured reserve. Dan Arnold is going to miss some time with an MCL sprain. The early reports from Ian Rappaport is that's a 4 to 6 week injury. Could end up being season ending if that's the case. We'll see how that progresses. Both Kyle Rudolph and Caden Smith dealing with injuries in New York. Smith has been dealing off and on with a knee injury all season long, but he's missed a couple of games recently. We'll see where his recovery goes based on practice participation. Harrison Bryant left with a high multiple-week absence for him. Adam Shaheen and Ricky Seals-Jones still dealing with injuries. Logan Thomas did come back on Monday Night Football, got a good number of snaps, a fair number of targets, did not seem to be limited too much by the hamstring strain. The additional conditioning that he gets this week should have him hopefully put that injury behind him. I think that's all, boys. Thanks.
He thinks that's all, boys. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's not all for Gerald Everett, man. So we look at Seattle and we're like, what are you doing? Seattle. But 20 to 40% for Gerald Everett. And finally, to sound like young Jake Lloyd. And the story of Jake Lloyd is so tragic. Now I'm stuck on Anakin, but it's working. Gerald Everett, it's working. Okay, so pick him up. Finally.
Yeah. In the crystal ball seats, we saw Shane Waldron bring Gerald Everett in offense, and Russell Wilson's going to be okay, and everything's going to be okay. Well, the Gerald Everett part, maybe that'll come true. The rest of it, no, as Seattle's basically done for this year, and then that invites all the questions about Russell Wilson, what we really want to talk about. But Gerald Everett looks good, looks rugged out there, and at this point is almost a foundational player in this offense, and Pete Carroll's talking him up like he is. So a tight end where we can't get anything that works for a sustained period, Everett absolutely is a player that you should prioritize. And I'm at 20 to 40%, so say below Chuba Hubbard or Dante Foreman, right around that same range as Taysom Hill. But depending on your needs, you might prioritize Everett higher.
You know what I think of tight ends this year, Bloom? It's like when you have toddlers and they're putting like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the Xbox or something. Like
I was going to say VCR, nice. Date myself.
Yeah, I was going to say VCR too, but I was like, nobody knows what that is. So it's like, we can't have anything nice.
Yeah.
That's your tight end. Even your Hunter Henrys or whoever,
Kyle
Noah
Pitts.
Fant, Kyle Pitts. We can't have anything nice.
No.
So
TJ Hawkinson.
We get the peanut butter out and fire up the old Atari. Jack Doyle, 10 to 20%. Cole Kmet, 7 to 15%. And Logan Thomas, if he was dropped, 5 to 10%.
Jack Doyle's coming on. Actually has 3 games in a row with 3 catches, 30 yards at least as a floor. Obviously, Carson Wentz has got something good going with him. Carson Wentz has always been good at targeting a tight end. Wanted it to be Mo Alley Cox. I mean, I like Mo Alley Cox. I love his game. Largest human being on an NFL field. Not really, but it looks that way out there. But it's actually Jack Doyle and his hyper-competent game doing things. Cole Kmet. And it's just a big unknown. The Bears offense, just a big unknown. I don't even think we learned much because it was Thanksgiving. It was the Lions. It was Andy Dalton. But you never know with Kmet. He actually had a good game with Fields before Fields' miserable game when he got hurt. Logan Thomas is back. This is a different Washington offense. So I don't know what his ceiling looks like. His floor looks like it's about 3 for 30. That's what he had last night. It's fine. So, nothing to get excited about, Cease, but maybe there's nothing to be disappointed about at tight end. You're doing fine if you're just pocketing 8 points a week, you'll take that over some of the landmines again that have been at this position.
If you're just trotting along, you're like, hey,
Yeah.
it's not bad, not bad. And maybe it's a sign for life as well. Count your blessings at tight end. Foster Moreau, 1%.
Yeah.
The chat room was talking about him. There might be some in the chat that could spend more on Foster Moreau, which is fine. He's a good tight end. And when he goes to another team, you'll be able to see that more. We might get more of a glimpse now, Bloom. Yeah. David Njoku, 1%er, and James O'Shaughnessy. Somebody's got to do it, right? Oh, Dan Arnold. Oh, yeah. We can't have anything nice.
No.
1%er for James O'Shaughnessy.
Right? See, even what you picked up at the flea market, even that breaks when you get it home. You know.
You found it. It was a discount. You're like, hey, I paid 25 cents.
Right.
Nope. It's broken.
Okay. I'm going to go in backwards order of UCs, and you'll see why at the end. James O'Shaughnessy getting that Dan Arnold role. He has kind of a Dan Arnold skill set in the sense that he's a long receiver, not a former wide receiver like Arnold, but can play that role. Can get you 6 for 43. Njoku's on bye. Harrison Bryant has a high ankle sprain. We know Njoku has the ability. It's just not the usage. So could they finally find it? Maybe. But carrying him through the bye, I mean, if you're throwing darts at tight end and you have a roster spot that you can reserve for Njoku, sure. And then there's Foster Moreau. Now, this IT band thing sounds like it could be no big deal. He could play through it, but it's also not an injury that we hear of a lot. And you just never know. See, it's like your knee has to feel right. Right? And when you go out there and you're running full speed as an NFL player, if your knee doesn't feel right, not everyone's Cordero Patterson and just gnashes their teeth. So we'll see. Foster Moreau, we already saw the 6 for 16 a touch the one week he's in, he can play. And then it brings me to LSU. Cease. Brian Kelly.
Go USC.
Cease. Brian Kelly recruiting in the South. Brian Kelly.
Gonna be some lean years for the Bayou Bengals.
I'm not even a LSU honk or anything. Just
Sounds like a conversation you've had at Cafe Du Monde recently.
Sure. Right down here, Little Dizzy's right down the street.
Yeah. That's right. Let's get to your favorite part, my favorite part. We all love it. It's a Keanu kiss, to be sure. For everyone out there that is making it through this journey. Again, I'm not talking about fantasy football. I'm just talking about life. You're making it through with us. And you know what I enjoy so much, Bloom? When we come in here and the chat room's like having conversations among themselves that have nothing to do with us. It's like, cool. We create a community. People come and they hang out. People like listening to the show, and we certainly appreciate that. It's very humbling, and you're going through your day no matter what you're going through, and we've heard from people going through that stuff in life that I always told my son, and we're coming up on the 4-year anniversary of my mother's death in 2 days. Not that I'm avoiding that day in my mind, but anyway, I remember telling my son, when stuff's important, you're going to know. Like we go through and like, hey, this coworker's whatever, and this problem here, and WNBC and all those stuff. That yeah. But when it's real, and when it's something to truly react to and truly feel about, you're gonna know. And to have us all going through this journey together, it's very helpful. You know what I mean, Bloom? It's helpful that we can be here for each other, and that the chat room's there for each other, and that the community that the Audible and Footballguys.com really has built is fantastic. So, prop each other up, hold each other up, hold each other, Bloom. Let's hold each other. Well, you're in New Orleans, so. But anyway, I'm proselytizing. I'm going on and on. But it's just good to see the community here. And good to see that everyone is waiting for this part, because it's cathartic. You get to let it go. And when you do that, you get to say, Cue the jockey! Break their tape, shut them down.
Yeah. And see, it's not just when it's important, it's when you're feeling it. When it's important, you feel it. You feel it. That's how you know. And actually, it's my mom's birthday today.
Ah, there we go. Yeah. Look at that universe.
Yeah. It's been 9 years. And we're here to keep each other company and uplift each other. And that's the great thing. See, this show started out because when you and I like to jabber on and on and hear our own voice talking about football with each other, we thought, let's do that and record it. And what we have is a lot of people who like to hear each other's voices, and we create a good place, a balm for all that stuff that's going on out there. And certainly shutting them down can be that balm. And, well, Cam Newton, talked about the value issues going into a bye. You can't really trust him now anyway. Ryan Tannehill, same thing. In a one quarterback league, you're not just, he's on a bye and you don't trust him. Tony Jones, oh man, that was rough. Zach, give him a shot. Zach Moss, maybe he'll play. Maybe he'll get 12 carries again. I don't know, but healthy scratch this late in the season. Ty Johnson, Austin Walter got the touchdown late. Not even Ty Johnson. So no, bye-bye. Last week, Jameson Crowder again staying with that Jets theme. Jets, Zach Wilson's back, and well, then that means we're out.
That means we are out every day, but we still have one more segment where you get to, it's cathartic as well.
Sure.
Sometimes when you're just like, I can't let this player go. So cue up those drums, Bloom, and let's talk about Week 13 hold-ons.
Just a few, and there's a part of hold on that's tough for me, Cease, because I think hold on represents when you feel some forces telling you to drop a player, but maybe you should go counter to them. But who knows who's feeling that about players, right? I think you're going to hold on to Dalvin Cook at least until we get more information. It sounds like they're going to try to get him back before the end of the year. I just want to see, what, if anything's going to come out of that. Again, fluid, it could change. Miles Sanders, even though it's the ankle, the team's committed to the run. He had 9 for 64 last week, so he was getting it going. Ramondre Stevenson, it's disappointing to see that Damian Harris is ahead of him, okay? And if you play him, so that's the thing, Cease, right? Like Ramondre Stevenson on your bench is maybe next week's Alexander Madison, right?
Right.
But Ramondre Stevenson, when you just played him, you're disappointed. And don't worry. He has the goods. He's on a team that's going to give him the opportunity. Definitely hold on there. Elijah Moore, speaking about got the goods. Zach Wilson. Oh, man. But, hey, maybe Zach Wilson, because he's banged up, he could get hurt again or he could get benched again. So don't do anything hasty there. And I struggle with this one, Cease. But Emmanuel Sanders, I still feel like there's that role in the Buffalo offense that there can be easy touchdowns when things are getting going. They've shown the ability. This one's kind of the pattern. It's not like they're committing to the run, Cease, but they're at least showing that they're going to give attention to the run. And they're doing more play action passing. Otherwise, understanding some changes they have to make. So Brian Dable showing some flexibility there. So I'm not sure that we've heard the last of Emmanuel Sanders, even though he's got cold, going against one of his former teams. Yeah, New England, Buffalo, big primetime game.
There you go. It is a wrap for today's program. Many thanks for you all for watching here on YouTube. Check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/footballguys. And all of our other great shows on this. We have Dave Kluge's Podathon, the Movember. And so that's coming up today. That's going to be how many hours long?
Yeah.
Like that's going to be
Thanksgiving
fantastic.
Tuesday.
So stop in and say hi, say what's up, and then check out our Dynasty show, Chad and Jordan, Dynasty newsletter, Adam and Chris, the mailbag show, Victoria, Dave, Troy, all doing great things here on the Audible, the IDP Blitz. Shout out Matt Schaff, shout out the legend John Norton, as well as one Sigmund Bloom on the couch. Bunch of great shows here on our YouTube channel. Also, can't forget about our Power Grid, our DFS show, and make sure to stay tuned for that. Just subscribe, do all those YouTube things, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid if the YouTube overlords remember to email you that we're on. But we are here for you. You guys are here for us. Thanks for the community. Thanks for the time. Thanks for the love and your attention. You like us. You really, really like us. And we love y'all. He's Sigmund Bloom. I'm Cecil Lammey, everyone. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.